Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jaya Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Tiriyet. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, Lord Rishabhadev's teachings to his sons, text from 9 onwards. Yada mano hridaya granthirasya karmanubaddho drid ashlatheta tada janah samparivartate asma muktah param yati ati haya hetum. When the strong knot in the heart of a person implicated in material life due to the results of past actions is slackened, one turns away from his attachment to home, wife, and children. In this way, one gives up the basic principle of illusion, I and mine, and becomes liberated. Thus, one goes to the transcendental world. When by associating with sadhus and engaging in devotion service, one is gradually freed from the material conception. Due to knowledge, practice, and detachment, the knot of attachment in the heart is slackened. Thus one can get freed from conditional life and become eligible to return back home, back to Godhead. So this knot, Hriday Granthi, is so tight. Actually, it's not just from one lifetime. Problem is that, of course, the family members change in every lifetime, but the knot is very strong. We don't want to give it up. Janasya moho ayam aham mameti. This is I. He's just stuck up in I, me, and mine. It's very, very strongly attached. Even the animals, they're also so crazy about their family. Especially the children. If the mother and child, even an animal like a monkey or a dog, she won't let you come near the baby. And this illusion or this attachment is only based on the body. Soul is not somebody's son or daughter or husband or wife. It's only based on body. And on the other hand, let's think, we get so attached to our family members. Attachment is based on body, but the attachment is so much there. And that is why if you watch movies or in the real life also, when police captures criminals or criminals kidnap somebody and to get some information, one thing that always works is they just say, I'll kill your family members or I'll torture your family members. And then the person just relents. Because the attachment is there. Now, if we analyze it properly, we have our relationship with our family members in this lifetime only, and we have developed the attachment. So how much attachment, the real attachment, Krishna must be having for all of us? We are eternally, not for this lifetime, not for 50, 60, 80 years, eternally his part and parcel and separated from him. That is a real attachment, actually. How much he must be worried about. Of course, he is there in our heart as Paramatma, but how much is hankering for us to come back. But we are so stubborn. We are so stubborn that we don't want to go back. We still want to just show our affection to our family members, our community, our relatives, or this or that, except Krishna. And he's waiting. He's waiting for all of us to come. In Brihad Bhagavatamrita, there is a story of Gop Kumar. So it's a long story. He goes to different places, different planets, and finally he enters Golok Vrindavan. And when he enters, goes back to Golok Vrindavan, when he enters that place, it was the Godhuli time. Godhuli time is in the evening when Krishna, Balram, and all the cowherd boys, they bring back the cows from the grazing. They take the cows in the morning and they bring back the evening. Evening means, the sun is not set yet, but it's just the time, like 4 p.m., that kind of time. And when the cows, so many cows come back, the dust is all over the place because so many cows are coming back. So it's called Godhuli. So Gopkumar enters Vrindavan, or that place where Krishna, Balram, and all the cowherd boys are coming back with the cows. And Krishna sees, Balram sees, they both see the Gopkumar, and Gopkumar sees them, and they are so happy. Krishna and Gopkumar, they run towards each other. They embrace each other very tightly. And Krishna says, "Oh, Gopkumar, you are back." And when they embrace each other, they, out of so much of ecstasy, they both fall down on the ground, unconscious. Means because of the ecstasy, so much of love is there. So much of bliss, so much of happiness of seeing each other for such a long time. And then Balramji tells all the cowherd boys, oh, they have gone unconscious. They started doing whatever chanting or whatever. And after a while, Gopkumar comes back to consciousness. But Krishna is still unconscious. So meaning, Krishna will be more pleased when we go back than we get the pleasure. Because he is missing us more than we are missing him. He is more eager for us to come back than we are eager to go back. But unless and until, because this freedom, independence that he has given, unless until we desire to go back, he will not interfere. And our desire is for our bodily relationships, bodily duties, bodily responsibilities. This is our desire to fulfill those. We cannot fulfill those properly anyway, and we waste time in trying to fulfill those bodily responsibilities and trying to fulfill the bodily desires, the sense gratification. Again and again, Prabhupada uses this word, sense gratification. So the desire to satisfy the senses means the body. That's all. And this is what even Rishabdev is. Everybody in Bhagavatam is speaking the same, giving the same message. Engage in devotion service. Get rid of this conditional life. Go back home, back to God. Become eligible. Become spiritually elevated. Text 10 through 13. Hanse Guru Mai Bhaktyanuvritya Vitrishhnaya Dvandva Tipikshaya Cha Sarvatra Jantor Vesanavagatya Jigyasya Tapsehan Nivritya Mat Karma Abhir Mat Kathya Chanityam Maddev Sangat Gunakirtanane Nirvair Samyo Pashmena Putra Jihasya Deha Gehatma Buddhe Adhyatma Yogena Vivikta Sevaya Pranendriyatma Bijayena Sadryak Sachridya brahmacharyena shashvat asampramadena yamena vacham sarvatra madbhava vichakshenena jnanena vijnana virajitena yogena dhritti udyam sattva yukto lingam vyapohet kushalo amakyam. O my sons, you should accept a highly elevated Paramahamsa, a spiritually advanced spiritual master. In this way, you should place your faith and love in me, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he did not say you should place your faith, your love in your Father, but in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You should detest sense gratification and tolerate the duality of pleasure and pain, which are like the seasonal changes of summer and winter. To try to realize the miserable condition of living entities who are miserable even in the higher planetary systems. Philosophically inquire about the truth, then undergo all kinds of austerities and penances for the sake of devotional service. Give up the endeavor for sense enjoyment and engage in the service of the Lord. Listen to discussions about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and always associate with the devotees. Chant about and glorify the Supreme Lord and look upon everyone equally on the spiritual platform. Give up enmity and subdue anger and lamentation. Abandon identifying the self with the body and the home, and practice reading the revealed scriptures. Live in a secluded place and practice a process by which you can completely control your life, air, mind, and senses. Have full faith in the revealed scriptures, the Vedic literatures, and always observe celibacy. Perform your prescribed duties and avoid unnecessary talks. Always thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Acquire knowledge from the right sources. Thus, practicing Bhakti Yoga, you will patiently and enthusiastically be elevated in knowledge and will be able to give up the false ego. So many instructions how to make progress on the path of Bhakti. In these 4 verses, Rishabdev tells his sons how they can be freed from the false identification arising from false ego and material conditional life. One gradually becomes liberated by practicing as mentioned above. All these prescribed methods enable one to give up the material body, lingam vipohet, and be situated in his original spiritual body. First of all, one has to accept a bona fide spiritual master. This is advocated by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Shri Guru Padashraya. To be freed from the entanglement of the material world, one has to approach a spiritual master. Tad vijnanartham saguru meva vigachet. By questioning the spiritual master and by serving him, one can advance in spiritual life. When one engages in devotional service, naturally the attraction for personal comfort, for eating, sleeping, and dressing is reduced. By associating with the devotee, a spiritual standard is maintained. The word mad seva sangat is very important. There are many so-called religious devoted to the worship of various demigods, but here good association means association with one who simply accepts Krishna as his worshipable deity. So to make progress, the first thing that is prescribed by Rishabdev is to accept a guru. Because without the guidance of a guru, one cannot make progress. To make progress in any subject matter, one has to have a teacher, a bona fide teacher. So similarly, spiritually, one has to have a bona fide guru. So of course, by mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers, so we have Srila Prabhupada as our guru. Through his books, we are trying to make progress, understanding the absolute truth, everything in Tattva. So trying to make progress. So when one engages in devotional service, naturally the attraction for personal comfort, for eating, sleeping, and dressing, for purpose of dressing, he didn't say mating and defending, is reduced. And it definitely happens. Because one starts getting detached from all these material things. Not artificially, it just automatically happens. Another important item is Dvandva Titiksha. As long as one is situated in the material world, there must be pleasure and pain arising from the material body. As Krishna advises in Bhagavad Gita, Tas Titikshasva Bharat. One has to learn how to tolerate the temporary pains and pleasures of this material world. One must also be detached from his family and practice celibacy. Sex with one's wife, according to the scriptural injunctions, is also accepted as brahmacharya, celibacy. But illicit sex is opposed to religious principles and it hampers advancement in spiritual consciousness. Another important word is Vijnana Virajita. Everything should be done very scientifically and consciously. One should be a realized soul. In this way, one can give up the entanglement of material bondage. So tolerance of pains and pleasures also. See, it's a temporary pains and pleasures. And it's all temporary, even pain or pleasure. So pleasure means when we get something unexpectedly or when a good time starts according to our horoscope. Our good time starts and then we start getting money and some prestige and power and position and everything is goody-goody in our lives. So one has to tolerate that also. Just like the cycle of pain or bad time doesn't last for too long. Similarly, the cycle of pleasure, it doesn't last for too long. It's all temporary. So tolerate means one should not get so elated that he forgets Krishna, that he forgets his devotional service. So the main focus should be on devotional service. Then one can easily tolerate both pains and pleasures. Because if pain is there, he says, oh, Krishna is giving me, he's purifying. And if pleasure is there, or good reactions are coming, Krishna is merciful, he's just sending me all these things. I don't deserve them, but he's sending. As Sri Madhvacharya points out, the sum and substance of these four shlokas is that one should refrain from acting out of a desire for sense gratification and should instead always engage in the Lord's loving service. In other words, Bhakti Yoga is the acknowledged path of liberation. Srila Madhvacharya quotes from the Adhyatma. One should perform activities only for the benefit of the soul. Any other activity should be given up. When a person is situated in this way, he is said to be desireless. Actually, a living entity cannot be totally desireless, but when he desires the benefit of the soul and nothing else, he is said to be desireless. So desires, again, sense gratification, desires means, material desires means for sense gratification, but desirelessness cannot be there artificially. We cannot become rock or stone that no desires. Even to desire that I don't want any desires, it's still a desire. So the real desirelessness is when we don't desire anything for ourselves. We want to just serve Krishna, desire service of Krishna, desire pleasure of Krishna. In the process, he will make us happy. That's a different story. But we don't desire that. That because it will make me happy, I'll serve him. In the beginning stages, yes, we do that. But when we develop love for Krishna, that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Krishna, but with the mood of Srimati Radharani. In his Shikshashtakam, the last shloka, he says, that, oh Krishna, whether you be present before me or not be present, it doesn't matter. You're my worshipable Lord, un, un, no, with unconditionally. Means even if it gives you pleasure by seeing me in pain, that will give me more pleasure than anything else. That is very high mood. That's only, I will say, only Srimati Radharani has that mood. But the mood is Krishna's pleasure unconditionally. And when that mood is there, of course, Krishna cannot go anywhere. So that is a real desirelessness. Spiritual knowledge is Gyan Vigyan Samanvitam. When one is fully equipped with Gyan and Vigyan, he is perfect. Gyan means that one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, to be the Supreme Being. Vigyan refers to the activities that liberate one from the ignorance of material existence. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Jnanam Param Goyam Me Yad Vigyan Samanvitam. Knowledge of the Supreme Lord is very confidential, and the supreme knowledge by which one understands Him furthers the liberation of all living entities. This knowledge is Vigyan. So one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode. Oh, Arjuna. So the both Gyan and Vigyan are important. So Gyan means we get the knowledge, understanding, and then Vigyan means we practically apply that knowledge. And then comes the realization. So all these activities and all these points are very important one to make progress spiritually. So slowly, we make progress. And then what happens? Karmashyam hृदय granthi bandham avidyaya saditam apramatah anena yogena yathopadesham samyag vyapohyo parameta yoga. As I've advised you, my dear sons, you should act accordingly. Be very careful. By these means, you will be freed from the ignorance of the desire for fruitive activity, and the knot of bondage in the heart will be completely severed. For further advancement, you should also give up the means. That is, you should not become attached to the process of liberation itself. The process of liberation is Brahma Jigyasa, the search for the absolute truth. Generally, Brahma Jigyasa is called Neti. The process by which one analyzes existence to search out the absolute truth. This method continues as long as one is not situated in a spiritual life. Spiritual life is Brahma Bhuta, the self-realized state. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. The idea is to enter into Parabhakti, the transcendental devotional service of the Supreme Lord. To attain this, one must analyze one's existence, but when one is actually engaged in devotional service, he should not bother seeking out knowledge. By simply engaging in devotional service undeviatingly, one will always remain in the liberated condition. So that is the position we need to attain. Just engage in devotional service, and that keeps us in the liberated position, above the three modes of material nature. The unflinching execution of devotional service in itself, Brahma Bhuta. Another important feature in this connection is Anena Yogena Yathopadesha. The instructions received from the spiritual master must be followed immediately. One should not deviate from or surpass the instructions of the spiritual master. One should not be simply intent on consulting books, but should simultaneously execute the spiritual master's order. Mystic power should be achieved to enable one to give up the material conception. But when one actually engages in devotional service, one does not need to practice the mystic yoga system. The point is that one can give up the practice of yoga, but devotional service shall never be given up. It's so powerful that it said even those who are liberated must always engage in devotional service. One may give up the practice of yoga when one is self-realized, but at no stage can one give up devotional service. All of the activities for self-realization, including yoga and philosophical speculation, may be given up, but devotional service must be retained at all times. So these are the wonderful instructions by Rishabdev to his sons. And he'll give more instructions, but again and again, just engage in devotional service, remain in devotional service always, always. So anyway, I'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mata.
Prabhuji, somebody asked me, शिवलिंग के ऊपर हमेशा जल क्यों रहता है? I don't have an answer for this. Can you please guide me?
हमेशा जल क्यों चढ़ाते हैं?
हाँ, जल क्यों चढ़ाते हैं? नॉर्मली क्या है, शिवलिंग के ऊपर एक वो कलश रखा होता है और उसमें हमेशा पानी रहता है. That pani is always, dropping on shivling. Somebody asked me why there is always water on this.
No, I don't really know all this. Sorry.
Prabhuji, should I answer a little bit?
हाँ, बिल्कुल. No, please.
जो माता जी ने मेरी बताया है, that is because she is a Lord Shiva's bhakt. So क्योंकि शिव जी ने समुद्र मंथन के टाइम में पॉइजन पिया था, मतलब तो उस वजह से उनके because poison generates lot of heat in the body, और इसलिए माना जाता है कि शिवलिंग के ऊपर keep throwing the water or droplets of water वो डालते रहते हैं continuous.
Okay.
That is one reason, I think so.
No, that must be the reason. I don't know much about.
Thank you very much.
Only thing I know about Shivling is once in when we were doing Brajmandal Parikrama, so there was the Shivling, and there's this one narrow where all the water goes through that, like a nali is there.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever water we put on Shivji or Shivling. So I was doing parikrama, I didn't know anything, and then one pujari was there, he stopped me, he said, don't cross over this. I said, why? What happened? He said, this is Ganga, because any water that is put on Shivling, because Ganga ji was from Shivji's jata, so he said this represents Ganga, so you don't cross over that. You go to one side and then you go back and go to the other side. I said, okay. I said, okay, I'll follow that. I didn't know. That only part I know. If Vinay Prabhu knows better about poison, drinking poison, yes, he did. And he held it in his throat, so he's called Neelkant. And that beautiful story will come later on in Bhagavatam, the churning of the ocean. It's a very, very long story, and many incarnations of Vishnu take place in that pastime.
Plus, Prabhuji, there is one more thing. Shivling forehead pe, there is a third eye. Usually people say. So when the third eye opens up, it emits the fire from the third eye.
Okay.
So because of that, the devotees think that it should not destroy them or demolish them. That's why it just keep on pouring water. It's a very ancient method which they use it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
तो
that could
forehead
be
से
true
वो
also.
fire emit होता है. That's why just not to let not that third eye opens up, because it will destroy everything. It's a I mean regulation which they follow, rules and regulations. So बहुत ancient time से कि they just drop water, either pour water on the shivling or एक कलश में रख के droplets उस पे continuously गिरता रहे.
That could be true also. Yeah, that is fine.
Thank you, Vinay Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Mataji.
Okay, so I guess we can stop here. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila
Hare
Prabhupada.
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna.